Hello, hello, and welcome to the Woke is Broke podcast. We are on our 24th episode here and about to wrap up this season for the new year. We certainly hope that you've been enjoying the ride and that you're having a great Christmas season so far. It's been interesting since starting the show back in May, I got to admit. It's been pretty exciting, and honestly, I'm pretty excited to get into season 3 come 2022. Um, uh, I've asked for it before, but if anybody watching has any comments, criticisms, things that they like, things that they don't like, please put them in the comment section. Let me know. Any feedback is good feedback at this point. But in any event, let's get right into the news, shall we? So this came up recently, and I will say it is rather disturbing. A company in Sweden titled Epicenter has developed a microchip implant originally meant for storing financial information so that you can buy and sell goods with basically the swipe of your hand. You get the injection in your hand, then you can just buy and sell goods like that. I mean, interesting. And now it's being reworked to be a COVID passport. That is an actual story. And, I haven't talked about COVID a whole lot on this channel because YouTube, again, has shown that they are more than willing to kick off anybody who says stuff about COVID that they just don't like. Even if what's being said is factual, even if what they're saying is in line with the science, if it's not in line with their science and their facts, right, you can get kicked off. I wouldn't be doing my job, though, if I didn't talk about this because this is patently insane. Right, the chief distributor over at Epicenter, Hans Joblad, we'll just call him Hans Gruber. All right. This guy says implants are a very versatile technology that can be used for many different things. Right now, it is very convenient to have COVID passports always accessible on your implant. And according to the UK outlet, the Metro, 6,000 people in Sweden have this implant, right? Meant, again, for storing financial information so that they can buy and sell goods on the go with the swipe of the hand, right? Whether you're religious or not, whatever happened to like having some basic moral boundaries when it came to science, right? Those lines, man was not meant to meddle kind of thing, right? Whatever happened to that? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? I am a Christian, and I know Christians out there who say, oh, COVID is a symbolism of, the end times, right? Xi Jinping is the Antichrist, right? The COVID passports that represent the mark of V. I don't know that I really buy, I don't really buy in any of that. I don't, in my mind, mankind has gone through seasons of immense suffering and despair, far worse than anything we're experiencing right now with COVID, right? You had the bubonic plague wiped out half of Europe, right? You had World War I, World War II, and all kinds of other terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things that have happened all throughout the history of mankind, in which people, again, who are in situations a lot worse than ours right now, would look at that and have good reason to think this is the end, right? This is the end. This is revelation, right? I don't think that there's anything special about COVID to suggest that we are now, on the verge of the end days finally arriving and that this is the mark of V. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't look at this and look at what it says in the book of Revelations that you'll have a mark of V placed on your right hand in order to buy and sell goods and say, at least it makes you think twice, at the very least. And additionally, it gives fuel to all the other people that we called nutcases earlier in the year, right? Oh, these conservative crazies saying that they're putting microchips in the vaccines. You're making microchips for COVID vaccine passports, you dumbasses. I mean, what the heck? I mean, honest to God, it's just absolute insanity. It's absolute insanity. Every time you turn on the news, it's absolute craziness. But yeah, I guess, so this is actually a thing now. COVID passport microchip implants. Good freaking God. But keep an eye out on that, and guess we'll be moving on here. So you guys have probably heard about the Pennsylvania female swimmer who's been blowing all kinds of records out of the water, right, for female athletes. Only problem is female swimmer's a dude. He's a man, right? Believes himself to be a woman, supposedly, right? Because nobody would ever, no athlete who has failed to find success in the male sports would ever just lie about actually believing themselves to be a woman in order to get in the women's leagues and then get gold trophies. Nobody would ever do that, right? But yeah, this guy's blowing all the women out of the water to the tune of like 40 seconds. He's beating all these other women like by 40 freaking seconds. That's a lot when it comes to swimming, all right? And some of these female athletes in Pennsylvania have started speaking up anonymously because they're afraid of reprisals. But there's another female athlete, not from Pennsylvania. She's from the Idaho State track and cross country team, Miss Madison Kenyon. She appeared on Fox News, and she's urging women to not just speak up anonymously, but speak up. And she had this to say. She said, "Tell the NCAA, your athletic directors, and your coaches that you want fair competition, because doing this is nowhere near as scary as it seems, and the amount of support is overwhelming." She's absolutely right. This is a problem, the transgender issue, and it absolutely is a societal issue today. The transgender issue is one that can really, sadly, only be fixed by women. I can bitch about transgenderism all I want on this podcast. The reality is that in order to affect actual change, it's got to be women standing up and fighting for themselves, right? I mean, I haven't talked a whole lot about this since starting the show, but I just want to say, just talk about the utter insidiousness of trying to erase women from existence, because that is what the transgender issue is at the end of the day. It's attempting to say that genders are exactly the same. They're completely interchangeable. Women don't exist unless a man says that he's a woman, basically. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I say this as somebody who comes from a family of very strong women, right? When my grandmother and my grandfather split up, right? This was back in the 70s. My grandmother, my meme, she had to raise 5 children on her own. She had to go back to the workforce after being out of the workforce for over a decade. And she had to go to night school all at the same time. And when she got out of night school, she started up her business, ran it successfully for 30 freaking years, right? My mother, when my parents broke up, right? My mother had to watch after me, my brother, and my sister. 3 of us kids working a full-time job, working her way up to management. I know how much she sacrificed for us, and it means everything. And I know that there is a special strength and a special love that women are capable of possessing that I think goes beyond what a man is capable of possessing. Or maybe not beyond, but it's certainly different, all right? Because the sexes are different, and women should be protected, they should be cherished, and they should be allowed to exist. And the whole idea of the transgender movement saying that that's all bullshit. Women, get in your place. If you don't agree with this, if you're J.K. Rowling and you say that, no, that there is a difference between the sexes, that women have certain rights, namely to freaking exist, then you are labeled a transphobe. You need to be banned. J.K. Rowling, the creator of Harry Potter, has to not be allowed to appear in the documentary on the 20th anniversary of her product. She has to have her presence minimized on the Fantastic Beast movie that's coming out. Right? She has to be shunned. She has to be threatened. She has to be silenced. Any woman who comes forward and says that, no, that there is a difference, they are part of the problem. They are part of the problem, right? And as a straight man, if I'm really straight, I need to be willing to go out with a man who believes himself to be a woman. Otherwise, I'm being transphobic. This is absolute batshit crazy stuff and is absolutely insidious and evil on its face. And sadly, again, it's an issue that really is bred out of the whole feminist movement at the end of the day. That's really where it all started, right? Inclusivity and all that crap. And as such, it's an issue that really only women are going to be able to solve, but that requires women to stand up, to fight, to speak up, to do what's right, even when you are afraid, right? Because if telling the truth were free, every Tom, Dick, and Harry would be a truth teller. There is a cost to telling their truth. There is a cost to doing what's right. And that cost can be terrifying, can be scary. Maybe you stand to lose everything, but you stand to lose everything anyways if you just sit back and do nothing while this problem, this very real problem, continues to persist in our society. I'm going to do my part all I can, but that only goes so far. This is really an issue that, again, can only be fixed by women. All right, moving on. So if you've watched the show regularly, you know that I've been covering the whole developing issue out in Iran, how they are on the verge of acquiring nuclear weapons, right? On the verge of acquiring the capability to produce nuclear weapons, right? And that's starting to come to a head, but the Biden administration had an interesting response. This comes by way of Anthony Blinken. He said, "We continue in this hour on this day to pursue diplomacy because it remains at this moment the best option, but we are actively engaging with allies and partners on alternatives." Okay, that's all bullshit. All right. They have been actively trying to get Iran back on the Iran nuclear deal that they had, right? And the idea that the Iran nuclear deal, that helping them cultivate their nuclear capabilities would prevent them from building nuclear bombs, right? So long as they pinky swore that they weren't going to take those capabilities and build them into nuclear bombs. It's just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. All right. But that's not just my opinion. Look at history. In 1994, Bill Clinton signed the North Korea nuclear deal, right? I don't know that was what it was actually called, but it was essentially verbatim the same exact deal that they had with the Iran nuclear deal. We're going to help North Korea develop nuclear energy as long as that remains peaceful, right? As long as they're not using it to build bombs. That was in 1994. Flash forward 12 years, 2006, North Korea tests their first nuclear bomb. All right. Playing footsies with terrorists and taking pinky promises from dictators does not lead to good things. All right. The reality is that the Iran nuclear deal that was started under Obama is what led to where we're at today, to where Iran is almost on the verge of having nuclear abilities. And as far as saying diplomacy is the best option, let's look at Joe Biden's diplomacy when it comes to Iran. Here we go. Biden lifted sanctions back in July on the Iranian oil trade, right? Biden lifted sanctions on 2 Iranian missile producers back at the beginning of October, right? Iran was responsible for a drone attack on a U.S. base in Syria back in late October. What happened to that? Nothing. We didn't do anything, right? How about removing the terror designation on the Houthis, only to have the Houthis storm the U.S. Embassy in Yemen and take hostages? What happened there? Haven't heard anything about any action occurring after that. The reality is that Biden's diplomacy isn't diplomacy. Biden's diplomacy is appeasement and concession to some of the most awesome scum in the history of the world. All right? And it leads to ugly things every freaking time. I know that there is this isolationist mentality that exists in our government and, among Americans more generally, right? That if we just stick to our own borders, let's pull all of our troops back and just line them up on the shores of our country and let the world be what it is, right? The reality is that when you are a country with international dependencies, with international threats, with international allies, you have to look at things on an international level, right? Because while you may respect your borders, while the U.S. might respect borders, guess what? China doesn't. Russia doesn't. Iran doesn't. We left Afghanistan. Who moved in? Russia. China, cutting deals with terrorists out there. We left Afghanistan. What? 1 million children are set to starve this freaking winter, right? People being sold into sexual servitude out there, right? When you give bad people leeway, they will run with that all day. When you give evil people the ability to grow, they will take advantage of that. And they are. Biden has been weak on foreign policy from the get-go. He's been wrong about virtually everything to do with foreign policy his entire career. He was against the raid to kill Osama bin Laden. He was against that. How is that a thing? I mean, freaking A. And the worst part is that we're making a mess right now on the international level by staying out of problems that really demand our attention. And then we're passing the buck on our allies to clean up the freaking mess. Like Israel, right? The Israeli Defense Minister, Benny Gantz, he informed Washington a week ago that Iran was building up forces in the western areas to attack Israel and other states, right? And Israel's been real clear. They're not going to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. They're just not going to. Why? Because Iran would bomb the shit out of them as soon as they had the ability. They're preparing for that. They're moving their forces into the western area for an attack, right? And Israel is preparing as well, right? According to the Jerusalem Post, this is quoting, again, the Israeli Defense Minister, Benny Gantz. He says, Gantz updated American officials that he has set a deadline for when the IDF will need to complete preparations for an attack against Iran. So, I mean, things are heating up. And, I said a couple of months back that it was my prediction, right, that before the end of the year, Israel was going to sack Iran, right? They'd have to because Iran's getting really close to building nuclear weapons, and that the U.S. would kind of just stay out of the way and then use that as fuel to go after Israel down the road, because there are a ton of anti-Semites in the government right now. Just an absolute ton. And I really hope that's not the case. I would really hope and pray that nothing bad is going to happen, but that's just not how it works. The reality is that Iran is the number one funder of international terrorism in the world. They are building nuclear weapons, and they do intend to use that against Israel. And meanwhile, we're playing footsies with them and letting Israel prepare to clean up this mess. That again was really predicated on the deal that Obama set. This is an issue that we made ourselves. It's absolutely disgraceful. It really is. I think the worst part about it all, too, outside, it's just the immense amount of human suffering that's come out of the fiascos of this year on the international stage, and that Biden couldn't care less. He doesn't care that we left hundreds of American citizens over there in Afghanistan. He doesn't care that we abandoned thousands of Afghan allies over there. He doesn't care that little girls are being ripped from their home and sold into sexual servitude, or that people are being executed in soccer stadiums, or that Sharia law is now in effect, so they're chopping off the hands of people who steal bread and beating women to death for not wearing turbans. He doesn't care that 1 million children are, again, set to starve, according to CNBC, in Afghanistan this winter from lack of resources. He doesn't care that Iran is building a nuclear bomb to go after Israel, or that the people in his own administration don't like Jews. He doesn't care about any of that. All he cares about is holding on to that damn desk, is holding on to the only thing that's making him relevant right now, is holding on to that thing that he has been working for, fighting for, lying for, cheating for, stealing for in order to attain his entire life. The presidency of the United States and the ability to be remembered as a hero because he did a bunch of shit. Right? Doesn't matter if the shit was awful. Doesn't matter if it was terrible, if it was scary, if it was horrifying, right? As long as he did a bunch of big things, then he'll be remembered as being an awesome person, in the same way that FDR, one of the worst presidents in American history, right, was remembered as being a hero, despite his policies extending the Great Depression to the tune of 8 years, despite putting tens of thousands of Japanese American citizens into internment camps, right? Despite outlawing gold and ordering farmers to burn their crops and kill their cattle in order to combat inflation. That was an actual thing. That actually happened under FDR. He's still hailed as a hero, and Biden thinks he's going to be hailed as a hero as well, as long as he does all the big stuff, right? And meanwhile, the world is suffering, innocent people are suffering, our country is suffering, and we are suffering because of his arrogance, because of his incompetence, and because of his insidiousness, and because of his desire to cater to the fringest portions of the far left. He came in claiming to be a moderate. He has gone way beyond that at this point. He is way beyond even Bernie Sanders at this point. He is doing all the radical stuff. Meanwhile, his Build Back Better agenda, apparently, that's dead in the water. Joe Manchin came out and said, no, I'm not going to vote for this. And everyone's really surprised. Everyone in the media and the Democrats are godsmacked at this, that he would say that. Only problem is, he's been saying this all year. Right? To the Democrats, right, the party of #MeToo, no means no unless Joe Manchin is the one saying it. He's been saying this over and over and over again, that he's not going to vote for it. And now it's official, and Biden's thing is dead. It's done. It's gone, right? And they're all surprised. How many times did Nancy Pelosi, did Joe Biden, did Chuck Schumer say, well, we're going to try and get Joe on board. We're going to see if we can reach an agreement. Well, we're going to get him there eventually. No, you're not. He's been crystal clear about that the entire time. But again, Build Back Better. Right? A huge thing that Biden wanted to push so that he could be remembered, so that he could be relevant. There's just no words for it, really. I don't even know how to begin to describe just how black your heart has to be so cavalier about the real world consequences of your words and actions, and not even give a damn that the only thing you care about is success. The only thing you care about is power and authority and keeping people under your thumb. I don't understand that mentality. I don't know how anyone could have that. I don't. But he does. And so do a lot of other people in our government. But with that depressing little rant out of the way, that concludes our news for the day. We certainly hope that you're, again, staying safe and having a great Christmas season. We will catch you on Wednesday for episode 25. 1/4 of the way to 100. Episode 25 of the Woke is Broke podcast on Wednesday. That'll be our last episode for the year of 2021. Again, we will be back for season 3 come February of 2022. There will be updates on that somewhere down the road once we figure out an exact date that we're going to be airing that. But in any event, I am Joshua Stanko saying stay safe, stay informed. God bless, guys, and Merry Christmas. We'll catch you Wednesday.